Earning the money, tasting the honey, hitting the high spots now. All my frowns have turned to smiles, no wrinkles on my brow. I'm stepping out more, getting about more, hitting the high spots now. Life is what you make it, so make it worthwhile. Whatever comes, just take it. You gotta swing along and get in rhythm. I'm on top of all the world, I'm making good on how. Turning the switch on, putting the Ritz on, hitting the high spots now.
They all fitted a particular formula. At the centre was George, the gormless, accident-prone, naive, good-natured Lancashire lad. He's put through a succession of humiliations.
I've come back.
So I see.
I found this pencil this morning. It's yours. I was bringing it back. Of course, if you're still short of an overlooker...
We're not.
Well, perhaps you need some machinists.
We do not.
Oh. Well, any hands of any description?
Of no description.
Well, I better be going.
Yes, I think you'd better.
Of course, I just, like, called in, you
Well,
know.
you've called in. Good morning.
Good morning.
There's always the courtship of a brisk upper-class girl whom he ends up with and who seems for some reason to like him.
I'd rather play oughts and crosses with you than take you to a French non-stop review. It may not be so funny, but still it saves me money. I'd rather play oughts and crosses with you.
There's always the defeating of a snooty, often upper-class rival.
That's what you think.
And there's often the rounding up of crooks. George Formby became an almost immediate star. From 1938 to 1943 inclusive, he was the top male British box office star in this country. It's extraordinary to think that he was more popular than Gary Cooper, Errol Flynn, James Cagney. He wrote a Sunday newspaper column. His records were bestsellers. He appeared on the radio. He was an enormously successful film star.
While you're playing your part, keep a song in your heart. Oh, dash it. Count your blessings and smile.
He embodied qualities that people admired and found reassuring in the Depression. He had a good humour, a good nature, a good will, which people found attractive. And you thought that here's a man who, whatever's thrown at him, will come through and he'll come out smiling, and people wanted that.
But along with the stardom came stories of his wife's increasingly dominating behaviour. Googie Withers was on the receiving end when she co-starred in Trouble Brewing.
At Ealing Studios, there's a canteen, but then there's a sort of an inner sanctum that the stars and the directors used to eat. And I went in there because I was allowed to, you know, I was playing the starring girl's part. And of course I saw Beryl and George sitting at quite a big table, so I thought I'd join them. And there was this ghastly silence. And she looked at me and her eyes opened very wide. She said, "This table is reserved." And I said, "Oh, I'm dreadfully sorry." And I went, I mean, the place was empty. And I thought at least we'd sort of have a get-together because it was the first morning. But no, not at all. Funny woman. I don't know why she was like that.
She did not care what people thought about her. She told me once, she said, "I don't care what they say about me as long as they think well about George, for him to be popular." And I'd say, and she'd say to Georgie, "Don't cross anybody, refer them to me." And she said, I'll tell them off.
It came over that Beryl was quite a dragon. She was absolutely the opposite, I can assure you. She was a very lovable person.
Yeah, do you know Mr. Wool's a window cleaner now?
I don't care if he's a vacuum cleaner. All I want to know is, can you play the uke?
Yes, yes, you listen.
The actor Gary Marsh worked with Formby on many of his films.
Mr. Woo knows...
And one day I said to George, "Now, George, let's go up to the Café Royal after work." And I said, "We'll have a few drinks and a bit of grub. What about it?" And he said, "I'd love it." I said, "Fine." And suddenly I noticed that his face had dropped. And I said, what's the matter? He said, no. He said, no. Beryl, he said, she'd never wear it. He said, besides, I can't afford it. I said, what do you mean you can't afford it? I said, £30,000 you get a picture. I said, of course you can afford it. He said, no. He said, I only get 5 bob a day pocket money from Beryl.
It was his own invention. That all he had was, oh, the old woman's only giving me 5 bob. He could go out and buy a car any time he wanted. There was no problem ever, really. But I think probably he was afraid that somebody might want his money.
He was mean, though. He was very tight-fisted. And so that way he would not be unpopular, you know. He'd say, I can't, I'm sorry, love, but I haven't got it, you know. Beryl only gives me 5 bob.
And I said, Beryl, I'd like to take George out tonight, give him a few drinks. What about it? I said, it'll do him good. He's been working very hard. And I said, it'll take his mind off things. And she said, no, he's coming home with me, aren't you, George? And that was that.
And he would be tired, you know, and he would not want to go to parties after a show. So she'd say, well, I'll tell you what, when we go to this party, you give me a signal. And when I get that signal, I'll know what to do. So he'd give her a sign, and she'd say, oh, come on, George, we have to go now. And then they'd hate it. They'd say, that horrible woman, she's dragging him away. And we were all having so much fun.
By this time, George and Beryl were having fun themselves, enjoying the considerable rewards of their success.
Now I'm a young inventor, a chap with good ideas. I built myself a camera, it took me years and years. It's a wonderful invention with special X-ray tricks. It can take a picture in the dark and can even see through bricks. I bought myself an album and filled it up with snaps, and I've got some lovely photos of the local girls and chaps. Now I've got a picture of the girl next door in my little snapshot album. I've never had a better snap before in my little snapshot album. There's Uncle Dick without a care, discarding all his underwear, but his watch and chain still dangles there in my little snapshot album.
The real secret of his success was personality. That wide grin of his seemed to spread right across the screen. George never acted gormless like some successful comedians. He was gormless so far as the audience was concerned.
Look, I'm all wet. I know you are.
It's not really fair for people to think that he was like that he was gormless and stupid and silly, because he really wasn't. I never thought he was terribly funny. I thought he was more of an entertainer than a comedian myself. He was very serious off the stage, and I thought that because he did what he did, proved that he was a better actor. I mean, he gave the impression that he was a real gormless chap, you know, a real happy-go-lucky and ha-ha-ha-ha, you know. But he wasn't like that off the stage at all.
Well, I'm going to be your big daft uncle.
I don't think you're daft.
Don't you?
He knew what he was doing. He had his head screwed on right. I think where it all comes out was the other people didn't know what they were doing, and he did. That's because they thought he was a bit of a gump, and he thought, well, that's great, let him think it.
So Formby himself is partly to blame for this gormless reputation.
Why aren't you selling those drinks? Well, up. That's enough out of you. Get busy.
He'd often use it to his advantage in private life.
If he didn't want to do anything, he would immediately turn a little bit Lancashire gump, and that would be it.
I've got the eyes of an auk, the strength of a fox, the speed of a hare, and the brains of an ox. Hey, I've got that wrong somewhere.
Gormless or not, Formby's act had an immediate appeal, particularly for child co-star Binky Stewart.
When Uncle George played, it was so simple and it appealed to me. And when I was playing a scene with him playing his ukulele and singing, I was totally enchanted, and that wasn't acting, that was me really lapping it up.
All are in on the swing boats. When you ladies go, mind the crowds below. Take good care what you show. Hold tight. Keep your seats, please.
With the outbreak of war in 1939, Formby was to become a national hero.